I am the John Dada showstopper, right now is the one and only, no other. Just pulled up, lifted, and persisted, ignoring my voice of reason. I've seen things that I'll never mention. I've seen people do more for attention. Here comes Mr. Know-It-All. I know so much, but I don't listen. Lord knows that I feel that pressure. God, please forgive me for stressing. Just pulled up, lifted, and persisted, ignoring my voice of reason. I've seen things that I'll never mention. I've seen people do more for attention. Here comes Mr. Know-It-All. I know so much, but I don't listen. Lord knows that I feel that pressure. God, please forgive me for stressing.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Duan and Only podcast. Today I have another very special guest. I've been excited to get her in. She is a VP out at Bacone College, and she has her PhD out at Oklahoma State University. Dr. Nicole Been, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. I'm going to get right into it.
Okay, before you do, I just want to thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here, and so I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, thank you. Thank you. How have you been since COVID and everything like that?
I think COVID's been challenging for everyone. When COVID actually, I guess when it began to restrict us from traveling and things began to shut down, I was actually in Kansas City with the Big 12 tournament. And so we were headed into practice and got the call that we were going to be shutting down the tournament and that most of the games were going to be canceled across the nation. And so I actually stayed out there for a little bit. One of my best friends from Bacone lives there, and so I stayed out there for a little bit before I flew home. And so had some other things planned for March. So March is really a big month for me. For March Madness, I typically cover the Big 12 tournament with the women's side, and then I typically will cover NCAA regional. And so I was actually headed to Dallas later in March to cover NCAA regional. And so that too got canceled. And so as far as travel is concerned, it kind of threw all of that off. As you mentioned, I do work at Bacone College as a vice president of strategic initiatives and special projects. And so from an institutional standpoint, you go into the mode of ensuring that your students, your faculty, and staff are safe. And so moving classes online, making sure that our campus closed and our students were getting home safely. They had the right technology to ensure their success going online. And so we dealt with that. I think from a personal standpoint, it really allowed me the opportunity to go home and take care of my grandmother last 4 months of her life. And so I think there's kind of a blessing and a curse to it all. It has very much disrupted our life, but I think without it, I wouldn't have been able to go home and spend those last 4 months with her, just due to my travel schedule, not only with some of the outside work I do, but at Bacone, I also service all of our chartering tribes. Absolutely. And so it's easy for me to travel 2,000 miles around the state of Oklahoma in a month. And so just with that, and other outside things, I wouldn't have been able to spend that time with her. And so definitely some adjustments, but I think in a sense it was still a blessing for me to be able to have that time with her.
Absolutely. And my condolences to your grandmother. I already know she's a special woman. 2,000 miles around Oklahoma, you know, she definitely raised you right. So I want to kind of switch gears here. So let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
Who were some key influences that helped you along your journey? We'll start with your childhood, kind of just into your adulthood now. Okay. Who are more of like, you know, people that really influenced you to become successful like you are right now?
Well, I don't think it's really changed. I mean, I think different people, but I think the solid or the foundation of it all has been consistent. First and foremost is, of course, the Creator, just for the blessings that He's bestowed upon me and continue to allow me to do what I love to do. As I've already mentioned, my grandmother, so my grandparents were pretty important when it comes to the education side of things.
Absolutely.
They were business owners. My grandfather only had an 8th grade education, and so he quit school to go care for his family, being one of the older siblings. And then my grandmother, she did some high school, but she never completed and eventually got her GED after she took care of the children and stuff of that nature. And so they really, inspired me from an educational standpoint. When it comes to sports, I know we've talked a little bit about sports before we started, and so my love there really comes from my father, and so he was a college athlete as well, and so I played at Bacone College. My brother is now a sophomore playing at Bacone College.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so every time I was with my dad, we were typically in a gym. And so he influenced my love for sports there. My mom, as far as influencing, it's really the resilience and probably my don't back down attitude that I get from her. And so those have really been some key figures just helping me to become successful. And throughout my life, of course, I have a sister, a younger sister. Her name's Tara. She's probably one of my biggest supporters. And then, of course, there's teachers and coaches that come into your life throughout it as well that just continue to support you and believe in you no matter what obstacle. I can't even talk
Obstacle.
tonight.
I got
Thank
you.
Thanks
Absolutely.
for picking me
Absolutely.
up. Come up against you. And so those are probably some of the most important people in my life.
Absolutely.
That,
So it takes a village.
It takes a village.
It takes a village.
Definitely.
Absolutely. No, I definitely agree on that. I thank everybody that's in my circle as well.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do the things that I'm able to
Yeah.
do without that village too. But that's amazing. Just from the grandparents to the parents, then to your siblings as well that
Yes.
have a huge impact on your success. I wanted to ask you, so on the process of getting your PhD, and I'm skipping ahead on all the other education that forget your bachelor's and master's. But no, on your getting your PhD, that's just, I interviewed another lady not too long ago. Her name was Skylar Carter, and she's currently getting her PhD.
Yeah.
So you've already had your PhD. So the race is finished for now. Look for now. But I wanted to ask you, during that race, during that time where you were getting your PhD, did you have any setbacks? And if so, if any of those, what pushed you through those setbacks?
So my PhD, I received my PhD. I'm still fresh. I like to say I'm still fresh. It's
fresh?
It's a little bit over a year.
Okay.
So for me, I think the biggest obstacle was just getting started. So I'm really good in science and math, but writing and research, that just was never my thing. And so, your biggest project with your PhD is your dissertation, which is this research project that you're going to go out and have to conduct. And so I took about 10 years off from between my master's and my PhD just because I was fearful of having to write or do this dissertation process and was afraid of failing. But it had always been a goal of mine, and so I finally just said, you know what? I'm just going to have to go get it done. And so I finally faced that fear, enrolled in classes, and began working on it. I did take an extra year because, again, this whole mountain of tackling this dissertation was still scary to me. And so I took a little bit more time writing my dissertation and doing my research. There was times that, you'd read 30 articles in 1 week and 7 books just trying to figure out. You may get 2 good points out of these things just doing the research. It goes back really to that support system because you will experience anxiety. You're trying to go to sleep at night. It may be 2 o'clock in the morning. And you're trying to remember, if I saved that article, did I save that final draft? Did I put it on 2 flash drives in case something happens and one breaks or my computer shuts completely down? I was also working full-time. So I was working full-time and I was going through my dissertation. And throughout that, I had other jobs. At one point, I was the executive director for ORPS, which is a professional organization in Oklahoma. I was also a research assistant at Oklahoma State University. And so throughout the process, there was other things that I had to take care of while going through my PhD process. I had a lot of support. My sister Tara, my sorority sister Amanda, they pretty much stayed on top of me. There's plenty of times Amanda would text me and say, hey, have you eaten today? And I'd have to think and be like, no, I haven't actually. Okay, we're dropping food off to you. My sister would send text message just encouraging me to finish. I was well into my dissertation. I think I had already completed like chapter 1 out of 5 chapters. And I remember texting my sister and saying, I don't think this is for me. Like, I think I'm done. She was like, oh, no. If you wanted to quit, you should have quit, when we first started this process. Like, you're too close. You're not quitting. I don't know what you're going through, but you need to go ahead and get it done.
Absolutely.
And so anybody that's going through the process, I would just encourage to ensure you had a really great support team. I think your advisor or your committee chair is also really important. I had a really great committee chair with Dr. Tim Passmore at Oklahoma State University. Every time I went into his office and handed in a draft, he made me feel like I was like the best researcher and my writing was the best he had ever seen. And so I always left his office feeling very empowered and ready to tackle that next step. I think another big thing is that support system, ensuring that they celebrate you. And so for my friends, Amber, Marlo, Suki, they were really instrumental in supporting every little accomplishment. Like if I got chapter 1 done, we had there was something we were done. They were sending me something. And so just really taking time to embrace where you're at in the process of it. Depending on what your research is about, it can really affect you as well. And so I looked at domestic violence in Native American women. And so what I did is I measured their depression levels against their physical activity levels. And so I would go to conduct interviews sometimes. And so within there, you can really take home some of those things. And so it can become stressful as well. And so not only just the writing process, but, what are you evaluating? And are those things, those trauma situations that you may deal with, how are you bringing that home and how is that affecting you? And I don't think I really took that into consideration when I first started my research until after one of my first meetings.
Wow.
And then I realized that, you mentally you have to prepare to go in here and work with this group that you're passionate about. So again, it's a process, but I think if you have a really good support team and who you have on your dissertation committee becomes very important.
So more like accountability, if anything.
Yeah, I think accountability.
You need somebody that can keep you accountable.
Yes.
That's super important because a lot of people think that they can do it by themselves and I'm self-made and this and this, and I'm like, no, you need a team to help you. You really truly need a team to like somebody to come and help you, because I feel like everybody has to have a mental break somewhere down the line. Down the line, you have to have somebody that just comes over and just lets you know, hey, you're doing great.
Right.
Keep going. Here, just take a break just for a second. I know you got to finish this. I know you got to finish this research. Whatever you're doing, you got to finish that. But just take a few minutes, eat, do whatever you're doing, and then get back to it. Yeah. You're doing great. So I truly admire that because a lot of people don't really talk about that at all. It's a great accomplishment. People don't see you go through the storm. People don't see you go through the storm. They just see you get to the mountaintop, and then they see the congratulations. But they don't know what it took to get there. So that's amazing, and that's just inspirational for everybody. I wanted to ask you another question. Okay. So I'm going to kind of quote this. You mentioned in an interview that having a higher education can provide better opportunities at a seat at the table where decisions are made, communities and lives are changed. What are some key changes that we as a community can help you with as far as change goes? Because I feel like that was a very profound statement. A lot of people don't really talk about having a higher education, having a different view on certain things because of what you have been exposed to can help out the community who's never been there. Right.
So for me, education is great. I work in education. I've worked in education for over 10 years now. And of course, I do, as we talked about my PhD. For me, education is simply just a tool, though. It's a tool that allows me to have a seat at the table where these decisions are being made. And when we talk about these seats at tables, these decisions are usually being made for a group of people. And so for me, it's more individualized. Like what I'm passionate about, you may not be passionate about. What is needed in my community may be different than what's needed in your community. And so for me, those are the seats that I want to have. So I'm passionate about the educational gap for Native Americans and other minorities. I'm passionate about domestic violence and financial literacy and economic development. So those are going to look very different in the community that I'm in and the people that I want to serve maybe versus what someone else is passionate about or who they want to serve. And so for me, the seats that I choose to take or that I seek to take really align to what is my community in need of and what are the things that I'm passionate about. And so those are the decisions that I want to be involved in. And then, of course, just overall social justice issues. And so I think it's very different, And so anybody that's looking to be a difference maker, to obtain those seats and make a better, a change for the community, my first questions to them are, what are you passionate about, and what's the public need or the public concern where you're at within your community? And then how do you begin to get involved in that? Is it a volunteer position? Is it more of a city council or the school board, or maybe a Senate position? And so, again, I try to use my education and my voice and my representation to make community change on the things that I'm passionate about or the things that I see are needed for the communities or the people that I'm passionate about.
Can I ask you a question? Sure. So in what you just said, those meetings that you are in, are there any other Native ladies like yourself with the how many more Native ladies like yourself are in that meeting? Is it just you at times? Is it more than one or two at times? Or how does that work out?
I think it varies. And so we can look at my current job. I work for Bacone College. All of my vice presidents are all women, and they're all Native women. So about 90% of our executive team right now at Bacone College is Native Americans, and we're pushing for that educational gap to be closed. So Native Americans have the highest high school dropout rate, and they're also the least likely to complete college. And so for us, we're passionate about changing that. And so we're trying to use Bacone College as a way to change that. Okay. Again, offering this opportunity for Native Americans to come to Bacone and get an education in a cultural setting that's more conducive to to them. And so that's part of change. There's also places where, I've been the only Native American voice there or the only Native American woman voice there. And so I'm pushing for those rights and stuff in there. And so it really just depends. I mean, even going to a PWI at Oklahoma State University, a predominantly white institution, as a Native American woman, again, I'm not necessarily sitting on a board, but what changes do I want to see? I want to see this educational gap close. And so me being there and being being a representative for my people at that location begins to change the way that we're viewed, the way that we access education, maybe even the offerings that they're going to offer or resources to help change or make that educational system more accessible for us.
Absolutely. No, that's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. You have quite the resume, so I'm excited. I'm super excited.
This is what you've been waiting for, right?
I've been waiting for this.
Forget all that stuff.
No, absolutely. So, you have worked with the NBA Orlando Magics, the Baylor Lady Bears, and Langston University. We're going to get into that, but before we get into that, I want to know how deep is your love for the game of basketball, because that's what those three things definitely have in common.
So I always like to say education is kind of what I do, but sports is who I am, particularly basketball. So as I mentioned to you before, my father played college ball. Anytime I was with him, I was playing. I played college. My brother plays college. Even my grandmother, when I would come home, if I had missed a game, she had all the scores written down for me. She would, hey, as soon as I came in, hey, I wrote the scores down for you. So-and-so won by this many points. Oh, you missed a good game. And so basketball is just kind of, who we are. Sports is what we do. And so I always tell people I leave it all and give it up for basketball at any time.
Oh, man. You that cold with it, huh? WNBA? Okay. No, I'm with you. The importance to your native roots is strong and inspirational. What made you say, however successful that I become or wherever seat at the table that I'm at, I'm always going to give back specifically to the Native American community?
So growing up, I didn't grow up in like a traditional Native American home where we practice the culture and the traditions. And so I did grow up on tribal land in a tribal housing complex, which is now, I can say I grew up on the reservation officially. And so I didn't have the understanding or the knowledge of who I was as a Native American and as a Native American woman. And so as I began to get older and I began to be aware of what that meant, and of course there's those identity struggles and issues that you go through trying to figure out what that means. For me, I just became passionate about learning about this culture, learning about the rich history of my ancestors, the things that they went through. I shared a lot of the same disparities, or had experienced a lot of the same disparities that we see in Native Americans as far as sexual abuse and domestic violence and substance abuse. And so those things were around me, or I experienced them personally. And so for me, as I began to really understand what it meant to be a Native American or a Native American woman, a citizen of the Muskogee Creek Nation, and just the disparities that our people faced, I knew that once I got older and I began to really understand who I was, that it was going to be important for me to give back in that regard. I always wanted to be the person that I didn't have when I was younger. And I always wanted to be an example of what you could become despite what statistics have told you or what those around you have told you. And so for me, that's really what it came back to. And so I enjoy giving back to everyone, but I do particularly have a genuine concern and care for, or passion about giving back to my people. Absolutely.
Man, that was a great answer. I don't really... you are a part of the Native American 40 under 40. My first question on that part is, people don't even know what that is. So could you explain that? I know what it is, but could you explain what that is? I kind of know what it is. Okay. But I'm gonna let you explain that. And has this accomplishment settled in? And what does this award mean to you?
40 Under 40 is a national award that is given out in regards to the top 40, I guess, if you want to lay it like that, top 40 Native Americans in the United States that are really focused on giving back to their community and how they begin to empower that. And so for me, it really, what was your second question? I'm sorry.
The second question was has it settled in?
That's what I thought
has
it was.
Has it settled into
Okay.
you, and what does the award mean to you?
Gotcha. That's what I thought you were
I
going.
got you. No, I got you.
So I don't really think it's settled in. I think it's a very humbling, a humbling award. I think it's an honor to be able to not only represent my family, but my community and my tribe just because of what the award means. And, when you're doing something that you're passionate about and you're doing something for the people you're passionate about serving and you're recognized for that, it's very humbling. And it's probably one of the greatest rewards that you can get. And so for me, I'm still kind of in shock and haven't really taken in like all that it means. And my family and my friends, they're really excited and they're like, I mean, you grasp what this means, and I'm like, kinda. I think in the back of my head I understand, but me actually being recognized as one of the recipients of the award hasn't really sunk in just yet. So. Yeah, so again, very humbled and
so you just driving down the road one day, you're like, man, I'm on the 40 under 40. Or is it more like somebody will give you a call and they'll be like, girl, you still under the 40 under 40? How do you feel about
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
And it's really hard, you're out here doing work that you're passionate about. You're doing stuff that you enjoy doing, so it doesn't feel like work.
Yeah.
And then you realize that people are looking up to you, and so I have, parents or something that's just like, oh, we saw you doing X, Y, and Z, and my kids just love you. Or, I have some nieces and they'll reach out, their mom will reach out to me and just say, you don't understand how much, Rue, looks up to you and the things that you're doing. And for me, it's just like, oh.
But you're just doing what you love.
Yeah,
you're just doing what you
and
love.
you don't really think about it. And so every time those things happen, because these are my nieces, these are my nephews, these are, these are the kids that I love and you would do anything for, and for them to really look at you and hold you in such a high regard, it's just a very humbling experience. And, there's oftentimes that I'm just like, oh, wow. And again, because you don't think about that you're being a role model. You don't think about those things. You think about, I want to love these people. I want to make a difference in their lives, and I want to be there for them. In much of the same manner that that you needed somebody to be there for you, or that somebody was there for you.
Yeah.
And so you kind of overlook those things. But it's when people that are really close to you, that know the struggles that you went through, that knows the obstacles you have to overcome, and they really value you, and they really look up to you as a role model. Like, that's probably one of the other most like humbling things, and you're just like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So that really rolls into my next question. No, seriously, it does, because you're such a role model, and people know who you are. Do you feel it is a sense of responsibility, specifically for young lady natives, to mentor them, to help them reach their goals? I mean, we know you're busy. We know what you're doing right now is super important, but when would you have the time to mentor these younger ladies, or does that even come up, where you're like, man, I just don't have the time, or man, I really wish I can get with this young lady and help her. I see that she's striving for excellence. I see that she's really trying to make it to the mountaintop, whether it's education, basketball, soccer, softball, whatever the case may be. Does that sink in for you, and do you feel that sense of responsibility?
So I definitely think that there's a sense of responsibility. It's not just about me, but it's more so about my family, about my immediate community, about my tribe, and just my people in general. And so I definitely think there's a sense of responsibility. Within that sense of responsibility, though, it keeps you motivated. It keeps you focused on the work that you're doing. So when you do get tired, or when you do hit an obstacle, it's not about you. And so because of that, that the work that you're doing is for a much bigger cause. And so you're able to keep going. And so I definitely feel a sense of responsibility, and I definitely use it to keep me motivated and keep me focused, moving towards the goal. But I also think, in a sense, it's more so not a sense of responsibility, but an opportunity that I've been given. Like, I've been blessed with the opportunity to be that person. I've been, when you're mentoring someone, that's like to me, one of the greatest things that you can be tasked with, because you have somebody that's in your care, that you've asked to look after. And so for me, mentoring is not necessarily a sense of responsibility when we think about just mentoring. It's more of an opportunity to be a positive factor in someone's life.
With that opportunity, and not to cut you off,
No, you're
but
good.
do you feel, because people don't understand this, when you're mentoring them, do you feel a sense of pressure too? Am I making sense? Like,
yeah,
is it?
I think it goes back to that sense of responsibility, that sense of pressure. Like if this doesn't go well, then it may be on you. Is that what you're kind of referencing to?
Yes.
Actually, I've never felt that way because it's always just been an opportunity. You know, you can provide guidance, you can provide opportunities, you can provide resources, and there's always that decision that people have, whether they can accept those or they not. And so you're always going to have people that you mentor, that you interact with, that may not meet your expectations or your standards or your levels, whatever those things are. But overall, it's your job to love that person no matter what those decisions are. And so for me, again, yes, there's a sense of responsibility because the things that I stand for, the things that I represent, the way that I carry myself, the things I'm involved in is not just about me. You know, it's not just a reflection of who I am, but I represent you know, a much larger scale of things. You know, again, my family, my community, my tribe, and then just for me, Native American people in general. And so, but I also look at it as an opportunity. And so one of the greatest things about teaching, and, you know, I taught at Langston University for, I think, 8 years, and then I've coached at Seminole State College, Baylor University, and Laterno University, as well as Stillwater High School and junior high. I think one of the greatest things was working with the young people and just, you know, getting this young person that really doesn't know who they are, really isn't confident, really hasn't had the resources given to them, and then you see that light go off. You see them begin to get it. You see them begin to come in who they are and who they've been destined to be and overcome those obstacles and really start walking in their purpose. And so for me, that's one of the greatest achievements. You know, every year that my students would walk across that Langston, that was like me graduating again because I knew the work they put in. I knew the times we had got into it in class. I knew the times that I had to give them a 0 or whatever the case they was. And not just educationally, but, you know, you become so much more as a coach and you become so much more as a teacher, you know, because not only are you dealing with their educational obstacles, but they also have those personal obstacles that they bring into that classroom. And so how do you navigate and how do you help them navigate those things? And so for me, that was always one of the biggest things that, and even now, you know, as I still do a lot of mentoring. You mentioned how do you make time for it, you know, knowing that you're busy. I think when you've been called or you've been put in a position, you make the time for it, you know, and it's not a job. Right now I'm working with the Muskogee youth within my tribe, and they're doing a wellness week. And so we're doing boot camps. And so every Tuesday, we started in December this month. And so January, February, March, every Tuesday, the first Tuesday of every month, I'm doing a boot camp class with them for their youth. And so you just find time, you know, again, we've talked about, you know, when you're passionate about it, it's not really work. You know, it's something that you enjoy.
Love to do.
Yeah. And so being able to give back is just one of my greatest joys. I just enjoy it. I enjoy being involved in the community. Even when I taught, we were always doing community initiatives and ensuring that we were serving. And so again, yes, there's a sense of responsibility, but it's more so an opportunity that I've been given in being able to do that. And so
absolutely.
Wow,
that's a profound answer. I can't ask any more better than that.
You have some really good questions. Thank
you. I appreciate it. What is the Bean Foundation? And also, how can people like myself get involved to donate time, donate money, whatever the case may be? How can we be involved with your vision?
So the Bean Foundation is a nonprofit organization that we started in 2005. And so, again, just using our last name as an acronym, it stands for Building, Educating, and Elevating Neighborhoods. And so we started it in 2005, as I mentioned. We're really looking to support those that have some type of socioeconomic issue to participate, experience, or be involved in 3 different areas, whether that's social, whether that's sports or physical activity, and then also educational. And so those are really our 3 pillars that we focus on. And so each area of those has different either activities or different grants or stuff that we offer. And so, for instance, for athletics, we offer Bean athletic grants. And so every year at Okima High School, that's where I'm from and where I grew up, we offer 2 athletic scholarships, one for a female basketball player and one for a male basketball player. We've paid from anything to a pair of tennis shoes to sports bra, socks, knee braces, warm-ups, the food to be, you know, that they need when they're traveling on away games. And so we give those away. We also do a Nicole Been Summer Sam Classic each summer, and so those funds go directly into fund the organization. As far as the social aspect of it, we started this last year before COVID hit.
Absolutely,
we were doing a prom package, and so we were giving one young lady and one young man basically paying for all their attire that they would need for prom. So a prom dress.
What am I doing? I need to, golly, I need to get my stuff together. No, go ahead.
We also we realized that when you start going to college, a lot of people don't realize like all that it entails to actually, there's an application fee. So if you want to apply for college, that application fee can be anywhere from $20, $25 to $50 depending on where you're applying. And so those are one of the key things and those obstacles that we want to overcome. And so we just implemented, and it'll be the first year that it goes out in the spring. As far as education is concerned, we are introducing a new grant in memory of my grandmother, and it'll be the Mildred Bean Mildred Bean College Application Grant. And so it'll be funds or monies that will actually pay to help people apply to college.
Man, that's huge.
Yeah,
huge.
We do a college scholarship as well. So it's the Darrell Bean Memorial College Scholarship Fund. So we do that every other year. As far as education is considered, in speaking engagements, as I mentioned to you before, I'm really big about financial literacy, and so really pushing that in some of our more rural communities, and so we're looking to roll out some curriculum there. The program that I'm currently doing with the Muskogee youth, the exercise program, that's something that we kind of want to implement throughout, and also some of our basketball clinics also.
That's amazing. That's absolutely positively amazing. I want to be involved, so maybe off camera we can talk about what we can do.
We actually have a website. We're rebranding right now, but we do have a website, so it's www.beanfoundation.org. And so you're welcome to reach out to us there. We're also on IG, and so _Bean_Foundation. And so again, as I mentioned, we are rebranding right now, so we're coming up with a new logo and launching a new webpage, and so if you go there, it's under construction right now, but we plan to roll it at the beginning of the first year. And
absolutely.
So, again, you can email us at info@beanfoundation.org, and so if you have questions, you want to donate, you're interested in getting involved. Again, we've been in the community for a while now, and so we'll get calls about different things. If someone needs food baskets that we always do at the holiday season, or someone's needing shoes, and so we have these specific programs that we offer, but also we get calls all the time for different things, and then we donate it as well. And so,
absolutely, that is amazing. What's your next goals? Also, before we close it out, is there anything that you would like to mention on this podcast that we haven't talked about?
I don't think so. You've done a really good job of asking questions, and so I don't think that you've not mentioned anything that I felt needed to be mentioned. I'm sure that I'll end the podcast and I'll think of 10 things on my way home tonight.
On the way, yeah.
Or someone will call me after it's launched and be like, well, you didn't say this.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with I don't have anything that I'd like to add at this time.
Absolutely.
It could come up as I go on to the next question.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Dr. Bean, for being here today. For all my listeners, thank you for watching this podcast. This is very inspirational. Dr. Nicole Been here she is not from Muskogee, but she is one of the vice presidents here at Baycombe College. So she is close to Muskogee. Before I get out of here, I want to give a special shout out to my elite sponsors: Oklahoma Farm Bureau, Scott Abbott, Interstate Properties by Holly Rosser Miller. Have a great day.
I am the John Dada showstopper, right now is the one and only, no other. Just pulled up, lifted, and persisted, ignoring my voice of reason. I've seen things that I'll never mention. I've seen people do more for attention. Here comes Mr. Know-It-All. I know so much, but I don't listen. Lord knows that I feel that pressure. God, please forgive me for stressing. Just pulled up, lifted, and persisted, ignoring my voice of reason. I've seen things that I'll never mention. I've seen people do more for attention. Here comes Mr. Know-It-All. I know so much, but I don't listen. Lord knows that I feel that pressure. God, please forgive me for stressing.